What is up, YouTube? It's VyPr Sports here, and today I'm going to be talking about the 2019 NFL Draft. The draft concluded earlier this weekend, and it was very surprising. There were a lot of picks that I definitely did not see coming. One of the primary reasons for this is because of this idea of talent versus need in the NFL Draft. Most teams definitely have a hard time deciding between, do you take the best talent on the board or what the team needs? And sometimes this does match up, and other times it doesn't. A main reason why this draft was such an important reason for this is that this was a very defensive line heavy draft. There were plenty of great defensive ends and defensive tackles available in this draft. Players like Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams, Clelin Ferrell, Ed Oliver, Rashawn Gary, and more. This is a very important part of this because as of right now in the NFL, pass rushers are very expensive to get. Look at players like Khalil Mack and Aaron Donald signing for $140, $150 million. Players like DeMarcus Lawrence and Frank Clark, who signed a deal for over $100 million earlier this week. Being able to get these elite players at a rookie contract is key to getting a team to be successful. Because right now, defensive linemen are one of the most valuable positions in the NFL, almost rivaling that of a quarterback. And in some cases, you could argue that some defensive linemen, players like Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack, are actually more valuable than some quarterbacks. Granted, not every quarterback, but some. And in this class, with this many great defensive line talents, it definitely might be worth it to take a defensive lineman as opposed to a player you need. This was definitely something that I think truly impacted this draft, so in this video, I'm going to talk about it even more. This idea of talent versus need was present from the very beginning of the 2019 NFL Draft, with the Cardinals selecting Kyler Murray at number 1. They didn't necessarily need a quarterback, but they decided to draft one because of the potential that he brings and from a just pure talent perspective. He can run, he can pass. There are definitely a lot of ways to incorporate him into an offense, and the Cardinals liked that enough that they were willing to draft him at number 1. You look at the Oakland Raiders deciding to draft Clelin Ferrell at 4, a move that surprised a lot of people. Now I understand this idea that if your guy is out there, you select him. Don't wait on him to see if he'll come back for another pick where you could select him. And while yes, Clelin Ferrell could have been selected with a later pick, or the Raiders could have traded up a few picks, they got their guy. They got their need in defensive end, and albeit wasn't the one people expected, they were still able to get their need. Then you look at the number 6 pick, Daniel Jones to the New York Giants. It was a surprising and, as of right now, very controversial pick. Daniel Jones, as of right now, is a very unpopular quarterback from this draft because Dwayne Haskins was still available. Drew Lock was still available. There were a lot of players still available. When you look at the defensive talents available, there were plenty. You had players like Ed Oliver. You had players like Josh Allen, Montez Sweat, Devin Bush. There were really a lot of options that the Giants had with this pick, but they decided to go with a quarterback. And while yes, that is one of their biggest needs, there are some times where you definitely need to take talent over need, and I think this was definitely one of those situations. If you're in a situation where you can get a great defensive talent who could change your defense, I'm taking that player over a quarterback who I'm not as confident about. As of right now, I'm not really truly confident about any of the quarterbacks in this year's draft. Last year you had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, both of whom I liked coming into the NFL Draft. This year, I don't really see any of those guys aside from probably Kyler Murray. Haskins, I think he'll be pretty good, and I like his fit with the Washington Redskins, and they definitely did address a need in getting a quarterback, but that was very lucky that he fell to 15, and I think that goes back to this idea of talent versus need. A lot of teams were drafting talent as opposed to need. Look at the Miami Dolphins. They needed a quarterback, but they decided to go with their need in a defensive tackle. The Broncos decided to trade back and draft a quarterback in Drew Lock in the 2nd round. Then you look at another team who decided to go with talent over need in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars, I think, made a very interesting move in drafting Josh Allen at 7. They primarily needed an offensive lineman. Most mock drafts had them selecting Jawan Taylor out of Florida, and as did I. That's who I thought they were going to draft. They selected Josh Allen out of Kentucky because he fell to them. They don't necessarily need help on their defensive line. They have Calais Campbell, who's still pretty good. They have Yannick Ngakoue, who is okay, not the worst NFL player there, not the best. But then you get a great talent in Josh Allen, who falls down to 7. Most mock drafts had him going top 5. You clearly have to select that player, even if he isn't the biggest need. Now when you look at the Jaguars defense now, they are amazing. Josh Allen and Calais Campbell on the defensive line, Telvin Smith and Myles Jack in your linebacking core, Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye in your secondary. They have a great defense right now, and that's mainly because they drafted very well in the past, and they decided to go with the talent over the need this year. The decision between talent and need also impacted a lot of NFL players' stocks. There were a lot of players who I thought would have been off the board in the first round who made it to the second round, and it really surprised me. I thought players like Jawaan Taylor, Cody Ford, Greedy Williams, Byron Murphy would all be first round selections, and they weren't. They fell to the second round because a lot of teams later in the first round, and even earlier in some cases, decided to select need over talent. And in some cases, yeah, that was a good move. In other cases, it allowed teams to get great players later on. The Bills getting Cody Ford, I think, was a great move. They need offensive line help and defensive line help, and they were able to get both with Ed Oliver in the first round and Cody Ford in the second. The Jaguars were able to get Jawaan Taylor in the second round while getting an amazing talent in Josh Allen in the first round. Then you look at Greedy Williams, whose stock fell a lot. I did not expect him to still be on the board in the mid-40s. But he ended up being drafted by the Cleveland Browns, and I think that could easily be one of the biggest steals of this year's draft. Because of how this idea of talent versus need plays out in the NFL, it truly impacts the draft in a way that nothing else does. So that was my analysis of the 2019 NFL Draft, and how the idea of talent versus need affected it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, comment your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribe if you're new. This has been VyPr Sports, and I will see you in the next video.